Okay, I think that should be mostly everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad to see you all, and especially to see some familiar faces in the crowd today. I'm Jenna, a sophomore from the Bay Area, concentrating in finance and operations management in Wharton, and I'm so excited to talk to you about my experiences as a Paideia Fellow. So I can first talk about how I discovered the fellowship. I remember in my freshman fall, I believe, my writing seminar instructor really encouraged me to go to the Can We Talk series that's hosted by the Red and Blue Exchange and also under the Paideia program. And I really remember this as a particularly formative experience where I was able to rekindle my love for the power of dialogue. I was a former debater in high school, so I kind of missed being in touch with global events and politics and forming my stances on various issues. And I also really miss having that pushback on ideas and having to critically think about why I chose to believe what I did, and also practicing dialogue across divides. Through the program, I was able to meet Dr. Anderson, and she introduced me to this amazing fellowship. When I dug a little bit deeper about what this fellowship does and what it stands for, I really resonated with everything about the program. I knew I had a passion for social impact. I did a lot of social entrepreneurship and political advocacy work in high school, and I really wanted to combine that with my business education to make my Wharton experiences as meaningful as they could be. And if any of this strikes a chord with you, then you are in the perfect place. I think this fellowship really provides the rare chance to be part of a select group of similarly motivated students from incredibly diverse and global backgrounds. You may already find in your experience as a freshman that you're pretty siloed into your academic studies or your career interests. So there's not necessarily a wide berth in the amount of people that you're able to meet on a daily basis. But through this fellowship, and even on this panel today, you can see the great amount of academic diversity that we have. Everyone has common passions, but their lived experiences and interests are still so broad that meeting with them, engaging with them, and being in classes with them has been so incredibly formative for my experience personally. And above all of that, they're just really kind, genuine, and fun people who I'm glad and proud to call my friends. In my first year of the fellowship alone, I've been able to take advantage of some of the amazing opportunities provided. As a Paideia Fellow, you're on the fast track for a lot of Paideia designated classes. These are often the classes that I find to be the most interesting, with the most amazing professors and also the longest wait list. This semester, I'm taking a really fascinating poli-sci course where I get to travel to DC and meet with White House politicians to discuss policies. It's really helping to supplement my understanding of how markets intermingle with politics. So it's also adding to my education as a Wharton student. Overall, I'm also hoping to implement my sophomore dialogue project later this semester that's examining wealth inequality within the API community. So another examining of the intersection between my finance education and my love for social impact. And more specifically, talking about my experience as a Wharton student and how that is as a fellow as well. I think, again, working to specifically explore and research where finance, social impact, and data analytics all align, I think has been a very fulfilling experience. I've been able to learn in depth about impact investing and ESG portfolio management, and I've even been able to talk about the Muse Advisor, which I'm the VP of Social Impact for, Annie Wilson, about exploring these concepts more in depth with Vanguard, which is a company that she works for. So overall, my experiences as a fellow has been something that I have been incredibly grateful for. The most fun part of my sophomore experience has been the pro seminars and the Paideia events. We've been able to take citywide walks with the fellows, talk to incredibly interesting and fascinating guest speakers, and just building this really strong community where I know I can have an amazing college experience with. So I cannot recommend this program enough. I think it's truly one of the most incredible programs at Penn. And I'm going to pass it off to Danae to talk about his experiences as a fellow in engineering.
Hey guys, thank you guys for joining me on Friday at 3 p.m. here. And Jana, that was a great introduction. I definitely agree with like pretty much everything said there. But yeah, so as Jenna said, I am a sophomore in engineering. I'm actually studying computer science. So naturally, this like Paideia program was quite a bit like out there for me. It's definitely not math and physics. Is a little far away from home base, but I'm very glad I'm here and hopefully I can convey that to you. So I think like many of you, when I like freshman year, I saw this maybe passed around in the group me, or I think I heard from friends like, oh, you should check out this Paideia program. And I looked it up and I was a little skeptical because lots of these like service, dialogue, wellness programs tend to be like a little like just like over my head. They're just like fluffy and they're like not that concrete and that's sometimes what like I find problematic and not like worth my time. But honestly, with the Paideia program, it's not just like a couple classes here and there. It's like a fully immersive experience into dialogue, citizenship, wellness, and service, because not only are you in a seminar, but you're in a seminar, you're taking classes, you're spending time outside with fellows, and you have a good relationship with directors and you get funding. So all of that together has made this a really exciting program for me. But as an engineer, especially, I think it's really important to have sort of a different perspective. So like I said, that's like a big reason I really like this, because it gave me something else to have at Penn that's not just math and physics and computer science and stuff like that. And then on top of that, lots of my interests are around like ethics and AI and how we're gonna like how computer science is gonna go forward in this world and how to be safe with it as well. So I was able to explore those interests as well, like in the program itself. Another big thing I really liked was the seminar and community aspect of it. So sophomore and junior year, we are like all required to take a seminar with the other fellows. And honestly, I've met some really good friends of mine from the seminar. And I think that having the directors there to teach the class has been really invaluable, because I can just drop it at any time, say like, oh, I have, this question, or I have this idea, or I have this concern, like, and we just like have a conversation, which is really great. And lots of the fellows I spend time with outside the fellowship itself. So it's another like home at Penn. Like, yes, you have your friends and clubs, but this is like just another interesting home to have, which again, doesn't hurt. And it's been really great for me. And then the last thing I really liked about this program were kind of the perks. So the events and funding and stuff like that. So as a fellow, both sophomore and junior year, we get a decent amount of money to basically do whatever we want that relates to these pillars. So like Jenna was saying, she's implementing her like project. And another few things you can do is like take the money for an unpaid internship or get housing that relates to these pillars, or you can use it to acquire a skill or find something that is interesting to you, like an initiative, and take the funding for that. Another cool thing we're doing is likely next summer, we're going on a funded trip to Greece, which I think is extremely cool and a really invaluable experience. I want to go there at some point, and having the ability to go to Greece and immerse myself with these pillars where it was like originated is super cool to me. And then like Jenna said, the SNF Paideia courses, having that priority is really cool. So I'm taking Grit Lab this semester, which is a course taught by Angela Duckworth, and it's notorious for a very long wait list. So I actually had a lot of friends that put Grit Lab first on advanced registration, and they didn't even get it then, and they're super jealous. But Paideia, if you're interested in that. And then like the last thing that was really cool was like walking around Philadelphia and doing these really cool events outside of just the classroom that relate to these dialogue, service, citizenship, and wellness, but you don't really feel like it. It's just a very cool immersion, like walking around Philadelphia. We spent time going from various places in the city that I never would do originally. And I think that was a super cool experience. So yeah, I will pass it off now to Maeve, who is in nursing.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maeve. I'm from Madison, Wisconsin. And as Tanae said, I'm in the School of Nursing, so my major is nursing, but I'm also minoring in health services management, which is a little bit more on the business and policy side of healthcare. So I found out about Paideia when I started getting a couple of emails around this time last year from the School of Nursing about it. And what drew me most to Paideia was how I saw the 4 pillars of the program: citizenship, wellness, service, and dialogue overlapping with my degree and my specific interest inside of nursing. So the nursing model stresses this patient-centered care, that instead of treating a single disease or presentation of a disease, the diagnosis is holistic and it can change as the patient's condition changes. This idea of treating the whole person intertwines like really well with the meaning of Paideia and this idea of educating the whole person. Getting my degree in nursing, it will mean that I graduate unspecialized with a BSN degree, and then when I hopefully pass the NCLEX, RN license. And Penn does a great job prepping us nurses for any field of nursing that we want to go into, but our plan of study is pretty set in stone and doesn't allow for a whole lot of exploration of specific interests when you figure out what type of nursing you really want to do. So for me, last year, I realized that I'm super interested in women's health and sexual and reproductive health. I want to be a nurse midwife and a women's health nurse practitioner, which essentially, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the term, means I want to deliver babies. It's no secret that this side of healthcare is filled with trauma and death and difficult experiences. And I know that it's crucial as a student right now to begin setting up the framework. So when I deal with difficult situations that evoke strong emotions, I have positive coping mechanisms to restore myself to a place of wellness, which I started working on this semester when I took an SNF Paideia, or this past semester, an SNF Paideia course on mindfulness, which I found a great starting point for that journey. I also know that because I want to go into this field of sexual and reproductive health, I'm going to be dealing with people when they're most vulnerable, especially dealing with topics like birth, sexual trauma and assault, consent, abortion, family planning, and breastfeeding means that I need to know when to create and how to create a safe space for people in all situations so that they can be as comfortable as they can be. And this means I need to learn how to make all my patients feel comfortable, regardless of how similar their background is to mine. And this is something I think the Paideia program really stresses, because it stresses learning about how to dialogue across difference and make sure, and it'll help prepare me to be the best clinician that I can be. Another reason I was really drawn to Paideia is because before I wanted to major in nursing, kind of at the end of my high school, I was going to major in international relations or international business, which is quite the 180 from where I am now. But I've really always been fascinated by policy. And I thought coming into Penn that I was going to kind of have to set that aside and use my minor as much as I could to focus on my love for politics. But Paideia is really going to allow me time to explore like much more how politics will play a role in my career. This past semester for our like dialogue project at the end of the semester, I got to work a little bit about the social determinants of health and birth. And so that was super interesting to me and really important, I think, in my study of nursing. So I really love that the Paideia Fellowship has been like a choose my own adventure to further my interest in nursing, sexual and reproductive health, and policy. And I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do that without this program. But I'm also sure that some of you are asking yourself in degree programs that have a lot of requirements, if you have time. And I have to say, Dr. Anderson and Dr. Howard, along with the rest of the Paideia team, really want to help you work this program into your major requirements and schedule. And they've done a really phenomenal job helping me where they can. Being in Paideia hasn't excluded me and won't exclude me from fulfilling my major or my minor requirements or from being involved in extracurricular activities. I play club soccer, I have a job, and I'm on the board of a club. And I know I'm going to get to continue to do these things for the rest of my undergraduate time here at Penn, and even with my involvement in Paideia. So if you have any questions about how Paideia can be a great program for pre-healthcare nursing majors, please feel free to ask me. But with that, I'm going to give the floor to Deb to give her experience as a fellow in the college.
Hello, everyone. My name is Deb. I'm a sophomore from Newcastle, Delaware, studying psychology and comparative literature in the college. And when I applied for the Paideia program, I was actually in the School of Nursing, and one of my instructors from a class called Nurse 102, really good class, I had her for 2 semesters, and she really resonated with like my display of leadership and also just interest in policy. And so she actually reached out to me and she was like, I want to write you a letter for this program. It's Paideia. I think you'd really be into it. And so I started to look through the program and I was like, this sounds really, really interesting. And I ended up applying, and it's definitely been one of the best decisions I've made ever, along with changing my major. And the Paideia program, honestly, to me, like represents this opportunity to just explore all these different domains of your growth and have that opportunity for the next like 3 years. And so I think oftentimes at Penn, it's easy to think that everybody has it all together, but I can assure you that even in this fellowship, even if you're deciding or thinking about transferring, like Paideia is a program that will help you foster all of your different interests as they continue to change, and also give you the space to like be in the uncomfortableness of not knowing specifically what you want to do. And while I do have many interests, I don't have to pick one thing, and that has been really comforting to know. And so being in this program, honestly, for me, has meant the chance to think outside of myself while also like looking inwards. And I find that to be incredibly timely, especially in the time that we're in. Like, I'm interested in relationship science. And one of the stats is like, we're in a time period where our generation is feeling more lonely than ever before. And so I feel like being in a fellowship like this, like not only gives you the opportunity to be intentionally connected with the community, but you're also like learning how dialogue and wellness like play a role in your life beyond being a college student. So as you interact with West Philadelphians, as you interact with everybody on this campus, and even as you go back to your hometown or end up going abroad, there's like this focus on making this a part of your education, but also making it like something that's a part of your life. And I really, really cherish that. So like I said, when I applied to the Paideia program, I thought I had a really firm grasp on who I was and who I wanted to become and what I wanted to do as a Penn student. And from being in the Paideia program, I've been able to take some really cool classes. Like this semester, I'm taking a course called Citing Black Girlhood. And it is a class that I think I dreamed of before I came to college. And I'm so glad that I get to take it like now in college, because it deals all about like feminist theory. It talks about the effect of COVID on healthcare, specifically in the Black community, and also mental wellness. And so when I transferred from the School of Nursing, like I transferred to the college with the intention of like learning more about relationship science and specifically psychology, because that's my major, but learning how communities come together, but also becoming a mental health advocate and seeing how mental health plays a role in all the different aspects of our lives. And with this course, like I'm super excited about it because it's an intergenerational class. And so a lot of my professors are like, of course, experts in their fields, but even my peers, one of my peers is, a collaborator is this woman who founded this amazing museum called the Colored Girls Museum in Philadelphia. And so I'm learning from these incredible women and like being in a class where people, like everyone in the class looks like me. And I don't think I would have gotten that experience if I wasn't a Paideia Fellow. The other really cool thing is that we're going to Jamaica over the course of the summer. And I'm really excited about that. But that's just one of the many things that the Paideia program that gives you. Like when I first applied, like I said, like there were so many things that I was like thinking of and like navigating through, but it really helps you expand your possibilities and like think about what else exists and even expose you to things that you never even knew like what was going on. And so some of my other interests as a fellow, I'm a podcaster. It's called Voices of Disruption on Spotify and Apple. And my pitch project actually deals with storytelling. And so I took this class last semester, it was an ABC's course called August Wilson and Beyond. And so from taking that class, like we focused on building intergenerational relationships, and my Paideia pitch project was all focused on how can we bring this relationship to like Penn students in a way that isn't predatory, but also encourages them to interact with the members of the city in more possibilities that they might already be doing. And specifically, I was focusing on the Black community because there is like a population here on this campus, and like there's grad students, there's undergraduate students, but of course there is never enough. And I wanted to like find ways for it to be more comfortable as a student on this campus, but also to find those connections. And so the focus of my dialogue project was to build these atmospheres for storytelling and maybe hopefully expand so that other students of different like identities could be a part of it. But essentially it's building dialogue across generations and making sure that we're learning from each other and like also understanding how to empathetically share our stories and know that those stories are valuable and to start building a connection and a network. The last thing that I want to share is about some of the guest speakers that have come to speak for Paideia. As a sophomore student, you take a seminar your first year of the program, and then you also take it your junior year. And we had a speaker come in during my sophomore year this past fall. Her name was Sarah Robb, and she's incredible. I think she's the fellow for the program this year. And she had this thing called Stories of Self. And I honestly really loved that guest speaker section because she was so engaged with us, she was so involved, and she took the time to get to know everybody's names and like help to build community even more. And I think it was just a continuous display of the fact that all of the faculty members that are part of the Paideia team, like they genuinely care about like your interests. And because the cohort is so small, like you also get the time to like meet all these other people, but like it's not the same with advising where you plan a meeting for like the month and you get it done for like advanced registration and then you go on to the next thing. It's really about building a relationship with the professors and also the advisors in the different programs and making sure that all of the things that you're interested in, that you have the opportunity to pursue them. And so as I am right now, like I'm interested in the psychology of fashion, I'm interested in storytelling, I'm interested in how sustainability is in every single field that we touch. And ultimately, I'm interested in like how our core values connect. One of the things we also did as fellows was we created a list of core values that we all like shared identities to, from curiosity to vulnerability, to make it a really welcoming atmosphere. And I think that played a really big role in making sure that the fellowship was really connected. So on that note, I just want to say, like, if you're still on the fence about whether or not you want to apply to the program, definitely do it for all of the reasons that we've named and more. It's a choose your own adventure. It's also like, if you have a specific thing that you want to do, like it's connected to all these amazing pillars that we have, and you get to join this incredible family of fellows who are also so interested and passionate in service and wellness and dialogue and just building pathways for connection and community in the world. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Anderson and Dr. Howard. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Deb and Tanae and Maeve and Jenna. That was really wonderful. It's really great to hear about your experiences and hear your perspectives on this. Dr. Howard and I are going to tell you a bit about the program, and I'll introduce myself as we switch over to the slide. So I'm Dr. Leah Anderson, and I'm the Executive Director of the SNF Paideia program and one of the co-instructors for the Fellows seminars. And so I will tell you a little bit about the structure of the program and tell you a bit about some of the benefits of being in the program. So the Fellows program, or the whole SNF Paideia program, includes SNF Paideia designated courses, many of which the Fellows have referenced. Fellows in the program take 3 SNF Paideia courses beyond our Fellows seminars. This year we have over 20 SNF Paideia designated courses, and next year we'll have nearly 30. So there's a large number to choose from, and they're in a wide variety of disciplines and offered in all 4 schools. So there's a lot of ways to connect with the program through that. In addition to courses, we also participate in a number of campus collaborations and sponsor and co-sponsor events with other campus entities like the Netter Center and Civic Scholars and the Andrea Mitchell Center for Democracy and Fox Leadership Program. So we are really connected to those groups and many others on campus whose work overlaps with our mission, and we work with them to plan different types of skill sharing opportunities, different types of opportunities to practice dialogue, and more traditional presentations and panel conversations. So those are open. We invite and encourage the fellows to be part of that and potentially to help plan and manage those events. We also have several initiatives, one of which is the Red and Blue Exchange that Jenna mentioned. That's how I first met her, through her participation in that, which focuses on dialogue across ideological and political differences, especially in a US context around issues in the US. And then also we have an initiative called the Public Interest Technology University Network that we are part of, and that program is housed under Paideia. And that is for people that work in STEM and technology fields of all kinds to think about the public interest avenues and applications of those fields. So for example, if you have a technical degree in some type of computer science or engineering, to think about a wide variety of ways you might connect that work to serving the public good. And so those are some initiatives that we have that take the bigger, broader Paideia mission and then zoom in on a particular aspect of that. And then finally, we have the Fellows program, which we're focusing on today, and which is the most immersive and intense way to connect with the Paideia program. And we're really excited that fellows are really a core part of the programming and work that we do as a program. So if we go to the next slide, I'll say more about the Fellows program. And this is really, we wrote this without hearing what the fellows were going to say, but it does sort of line up with a lot of what they said. So that is fun. Why might you want to be, why might you want to be a Paideia Fellow? Well, one of the things you can develop your skills in, if you're a Paideia Fellow, is learning how to use dialogue as a tool for social change, to consider both theoretically and practically how dialogue across difference can be a form of action to cultivate the change you would like to see in your community and in the broader communities around the world. So if that is something that's interesting to you, that is one thing we really focus on in the Fellows program. And as the Fellows said, it really is driven by your interests. So we have an emphasis on dialogue, but what that looks like for you can really vary, right? From thinking about ethics and listening to patients in healthcare, to thinking about ethics and AI. So where that dialogue and social change happens is really driven by your interests. Another reason you might want to think about being a fellow is it's an opportunity to explore the links between individual and community well-being. So wellness is one of our pillars, and we take that really seriously because it's really important to us as we think about cultivating opportunities for dialogue to make sure that those are dialogues that are healthy for those that are involved, and thinking about what the boundaries for that might be. But also that as students are equipping themselves and engaging in activities for social change, that they're really mindful of their own well-being and finding sustainable practices to help them stay engaged in ways that are healthy for them and for those around them. I think we can also think of this attention to individual and community wellness as a strategy for engaging and for social change. You know, if I am attuned to and am used to thinking about how I'm doing and the well-being of those around me and how that might be impacting our interactions, I can probably help cultivate a more productive space for us to be collaborating and working together to achieve our goals. Also, another reason to be a Paideia Fellow is to build a sense of belonging at Penn. Penn is a big place, and this can be a home for you. As Tanae said, it can be one of your homes at Penn, a place where you find a group of peers who have similar overarching goals, and then work that out in their own particular academic area, and a place so you can have this intellectual community with a diverse group and connect with people from all four schools. And that can be really both build a sense of connection and help you also move out of your particular niche or silo that is more easy to fall into. There's also, you can access funding for research, internships, and a wide variety of projects. And these are any way you might interpret the four pillars of the Paideia and see a way to develop your skills or to implement a project or to do some research in your discipline that connects to it. So there's a lot of opportunity for creativity here. You also have connections, and through our faculty and our network, to professors and staff at all 12 of Penn's schools. So even beyond the undergraduate schools, we aim to have instructors eventually, as we build the program, to be coming from all 12 of Penn's schools. So it's a nice chance to be able to connect with faculty, maybe at the law school or in the dental school or the med school or something like that. Finally, I would just say that the Paideia Fellowship is an opportunity to cultivate and use your voice. As you hear, each of the students has been so eloquently articulated the ways in which they've been able to leverage the fellowship to build on the work that they're already doing and enhance their opportunities or their exposure or their skills for that work. We have some specific ways you can do that in the program, writing for a blog on our website, which a number of the fellows have done, taking a leadership role in campus events. We've been able to connect some students to paid positions in some of our partner entities on campus, where they've been able to explore some of their interests. So these are, in addition to all the points that the fellows made, these are some that we would highlight from a program perspective. And if we go to the next slide, I will just end too. The students were talking about the walk around Philadelphia that we did as our sort of gathering retreat for the fellows and our partners in August. This is a picture from it. And it was an opportunity for us to partner with a local artist and Penn alum, JJ Tizier, and to be able to experience each other and the city. And it was just an amazing, it was an incredibly hot day, and then really rainy. But it was an amazing opportunity to really see all of our pillars come together. As you're walking, you're engaging in meaningful dialogue with people you may not have ever met before. As you're walking, you're thinking about the roles of service and citizenship, what that's been like for you, how that might be similar to or different than the experience of the people whose neighborhoods you're walking through. And it also was a great opportunity for wellness after, at that point, it had been over a year of pandemic and mostly Zoom courses, to get together in person, to be outside, to move our bodies and to move our bodies together was a really motivating and inspiring experience. So that's just an example of the type of extracurricular activities that we, the fellows get to engage in. With that, I'll hand it off to Dr. Howard.
Hello, thank you. That is a picture of me and Jenna, and Tanae was in our group. You should have been in that group, but so nice to meet you and so good to see your faces. And this is like a half an hour into a Zoom call. So since my title, I am also a student advising and wellness director. If you need to stretch your neck, like that's what gets me. This is a good opportunity to stretch your neck, or if you need to reach your arms around, whatever you need to do, this is a invitation to do just that before I tell you a little bit more about what a fellow does, which again, our fellows were, as Dr. Anderson says so well, so articulate that I barely need to say much, but I want you to know kind of the nuts and bolts of what you're potentially applying for, and we hope you do apply. As the fellows said already, SNF Paideia Fellows participate in fellows only cohort-based seminars. So you will meet with the other sophomores next year who are fellows for a pro seminar in both your sophomore year and then in your junior year. And in that, we are pretty intentional about building community. Again, the wonderful fellows shared that well, but our intention is that you learn your cohort. We only have 2 cohorts. This next class will be our 3rd cohort, but we hope to build relationships between the cohorts as well in terms of mentoring. But the class is where you start to build within the cohort. You also, as has been said before, enroll in 3 additional SNF Paideia courses. The courses are all over the university. You can find them. And as several fellows have said, some of them are very tough to get into and you get priority. You'll do a capstone project in your senior year. That project will be not necessarily something you do in addition to. It can be the thing you do as your senior project. You'll just weave in a Paideia goal or a Paideia pillar or a Paideia focus. So the senior capstone project is very flexible with the kinds of requirements and expectations you already have in your major. We'll work with you, but it just will have a special something else that we will then present in a special seminar to the university. You can then get optional funding, as has been mentioned before. The funding can be for an internship, special research you're doing in a lab with a faculty member, or a research project you're involved in, or something different. People have already pitched us, fellows have pitched us ideas from traveling to a conference and needing extra funds for that, to ideas they have about their dialogue project, like they want to make a podcast in relation to it. And then there's co-curriculars. There's opportunities to cultivate skills for sustainable dialogue, service, and citizenship with other programs. For example, we have 2 fellows now who are doing internships, one with Nature RX and one with Walks to Wellness. So other groups that are doing things similar to us, sometimes our fellows work alongside in more concentrated ways. So next slide. So sophomore and junior pro seminars, what do they look like? We have both academic content and research connections. So as we've said before, it's a half a credit course in the fall semester of both years. We focus the reading and discussion around the pillars of the program. So we look at dialogue through across difference in citizenship, wellness, and service. And we really dig deep in what that looks like. In the junior pro seminar, we add in a focus on your major a little bit more to that. We also, all of the assignments build towards your research project, towards a dialogue project that is interesting to you. And then, of course, when you craft that dialogue project, you can apply to get funding as that goes, or for something different. You might want to have funding to, say, learn a language, whether that be a computer language or a language that is spoken to help you with your dialogue project. So next slide. How to apply? The website, we have our application is available now, and we can try to put that in the chat. We'll get that in the chat really soon. We have 2 rounds of our application cycle this semester. This is the first time we're doing it this way. January 30th is round 1. February 27th is round 2. The idea behind that is that wellness is one of our pillars, and it might just feel better for you to apply for the later application deadline, or you might be able to, this time of year might be easier for you before kind of midterms are in full swing. So we've given those 2 options already. And what we're looking for, it's very hard to say what we're looking for because we really try hard to get as many different people, as many different majors, interests, schools, experience, backgrounds involved in the program, because we want to showcase Penn, that kind of the diversity of Penn. We want it present in our program. We want you to be able to demonstrate an understanding of what Paideia is, and the mission. If you're not familiar with it or it's hard to kind of pin down, you can go to our website and see kind of our language around integration and dialogue across difference and whole person education, how you're going to connect those things specifically to your goals. Then we just are looking for thoughtful responses to application questions, how you're really thinking about it and applying it to yourself. One thing that I didn't share earlier, I am a Penn alumna. I went to undergrad at Penn and I did my graduate work at Penn. And there's a lot at Penn, a lot of different opportunities at Penn. This particular opportunity, as folks have shared, is one to go a little bit deeper. And so we'd love you in your application to show how you plan on going deeper in your education. There's a lot of medals to collect, things to do at Penn, but how do you want to integrate and think deeply about what you're doing and who you are? So with that, I think we're going to open it up to questions. Those are some of the books we read in the seminar, some of the excerpts from them. You don't read the whole book. If anyone wants to pose a question, we are here, fellows and Dr. Anderson and myself, to answer some questions.
So my name is Antolin, and I just wanted to ask a question. I think Deborah mentioned this when she was speaking about her experiences in the program, but what is a Paideia pitch, and how do you believe that pushed you along your academic and personal journey?
So the Paideia pitch project is like an assignment that you have like culminating during your sophomore seminar. And so it starts off with like an exploration where like you get to read a book by somebody who's like connected to your field, and like you learn about something. So for me, I did The Body Keeps Score, really incredible book, highly recommend. And from reading that book, like it was talking about like how our relationships have the possibility to like build us and also destroy us. And that connected to my pitch project. And it's like essentially this opportunity for you to explore like some kind of idea, whether that's a podcast, a workshop, an event, and you do research alongside that. So you do a literature review. And again, this is all things that you're interested in, like whatever you want to explore with this topic. And so from the literature review, like you make your pitch project. So you have the sources, you have the science, you have different voices in the field to back up your arguments. And that's how you kind of like craft the idea that you want. You talk about why this is relevant, why it's important, and why you are like interested in that thing. And then at the end of the semester, at the end of your fall seminar, you have like pitch day where like you're around a table with other fellows and you hear about their projects, and you're with somebody who's read all of your papers, and they give you feedback from their perspective as somebody who's connected to your field or your field of interest. And then you revise your paper and then you submit it for final review. The way I see it, it's just a really fun way to like explore a community project or something that you're interested in, like a podcast or a workshop. And it's just a really big part of the program that like allows you to, again, explore your interests.
Guys, thanks for the great information today. I just had a question about like the dialogue aspect. I've been hearing a lot about that. I saw it a lot on the website. So I was just kind of curious, like, is there a conversation that you guys have had like with someone else in the program that you thought was really interesting, or like I guess anything like really related to this sort of area that you guys would love to share? I'd love to hear about it. Thank you.
Yeah, I can take this. I know as the pro seminar course goes on, we break down different pillars of the fellowship. And I remember we had one particular class on citizenship, which was just chock full of amazing dialogue. Everybody talked about their own interactions and their own applications of citizenship and how they interpreted it. And it's so interesting just to see how people were applying it to like a very like so many different contexts and also interpreting it on so many different levels at the surface level of what it means to be an American citizen or a citizen of the Penn community or other clubs on campus or anything like that. And seeing those discussions and seeing all those different interpretations led to some very interesting and fruitful dialogue.
Yeah, there's this one time we did this activity, and there's also like tons of activities that we do in the class that make it more engaging. We did like a walking meditation, a part of one of the books that you read if you want to be a part of the Paideia book club over the summer. Totally optional, but super cool. And the whole point of the walking meditation was to walk with somebody and to be like intentional about the way you're listening, the way that you are receiving the conversation. And maybe you're saying to someone like, I really like it when, like I can tell when someone's listening to me when they're nodding their head or when they're making eye contact. And I ended up having a conversation with another fellow about like, just broadly, like whatever was on our minds. And we had 15 minutes to go literally wherever we wanted. So we went to the top of Lauder, like on that hill area. And it literally felt like time froze. Like we were having such an engaging conversation. And I don't think I would have had that conversation like in any other class, and even the opportunity to just leave class and have this like space to do that. And it was definitely a conversation that I remember.
Hi, my name's Iron. Sorry my camera's off. I am very under the weather today and not looking the hottest. My question is a little bit more logistical. So I believe Dr. Howard mentioned this earlier about how your junior year you kind of focus in on your major. Is it possible to focus in on something that's not necessarily like related or like tangential to your major?
Yes, and I mean, we want you to do your capstone project in such a way that you're thinking about the discipline major that you're involved in, and you're thinking about how you might bring in one of the pillars. So in some way, we hope that you, again, whole person, right? We hope that you relate your academic experience to the program in some way. So for example, I don't know that we said it in our slides, but this will go on your transcript. If you're a Paideia Fellow, it's an academic program that is noted on your transcript in the certificate. So we want you to have it built into your academics. How you interpret that, we can be flexible. And Dr. Anderson and I are, I like that heart, thanks. Dr. Anderson and I are, this is the beginning of the fellowship. We haven't had capstone projects yet. We are really excited for these inaugural cohorts to show us what it can look like. So we have a template in our mind, but it's kind of template-ish. You all will definitely surprise us and will push us. But we do want it to be in your major. And one of the assignments we have in the junior pro seminar that helps is we have you interview a faculty member in your department, and the interview has some structure, but it has an informal dimension. And the informal dimension allowed many of our juniors to see things about their major that they didn't realize was part of their major, and see, oh, wow, faculty in our major are questioning that aspect too. There was just opportunities to kind of expand your view. So yes, and is the answer to your question.
So I know one of the elements of the Paideia Fellowship is that you're part of this intellectual community and you're gaining all of these skills for rhetoric and like just very thoughtful dialogue. So you probably you have the dialogue within the Paideia community, but have you ever found that you take those skills and you're implementing them elsewhere, like whether it's within your friend groups or clubs? And do you have like kind of any stories of that, like how you're taking those skills and you're implementing them in other places as well?
Yeah, for sure. I guess I can take this first again, but one of the core skills of just learning more about dialogue and being able to talk about differences is just being very intentional about how you're using dialogue really as a tool. I think dialogue and communication is obviously so important for every aspect of your life. And I think especially as a Wharton student, there's so many times where we're forced to collaborate in classes, but also just outside the classroom and internships. So you're really learning to talk to people from all different backgrounds. This could be your boss. This could be somebody with a differing opinion on a project that you're working on together. But all of that has been really helpful. And I guess one specific application where everything I've learned has been really handy is actually my work on PanHel. So I'm the president of the Pan-Hellenic Council here at Penn, and being able to talk to, different delegates from all the sororities with, obviously they have their own situations going on. They have, their own interests that they want to put on the table. Being able to consider that and talk to everyone from these different backgrounds, I think has been a very great utilization of what I've learned in the program.
I can also kind of piggyback off Jenna here. I don't necessarily have it doesn't necessarily have to be dialogue is what I think too. I think there's a lot of emphasis on dialogue, but there's so much more to the pillars than just that. So for me, I know we've talked about our dialogue projects. Mine was focusing on bringing together parents who birthed a child and the healthcare teams that might have perpetuated harm during that birthing experience with them. And so I was actually able to, because of my research in this class, write a research paper in another class, just expanding on that idea. And I just would have never had the tools or the knowledge to do that without this kickstart in the program. So I think it doesn't just have to be dialogue that the Paideia program gives you. It's going to give you access to for time to research the things that you are interested in and then take those to your major courses or to other courses too.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Fine. It's a really good question. I'd love to add in here. I think one of the biggest things that I've definitely learned is that there's so many different definitions. Like while we have these pillars, like everybody has their own version of something. And so wellness might look different to one person, dialogue might look different to another person. And ways that I've seen that in my own life is like when I'm having a conversation with someone, or even when like I'm speaking on something, because I'm a public speaker, it's something that I do professionally, like learning how to articulate things correctly or like facilitate and like listen to like the concerns that are happening and also making sure that people feel comfortable in the conversation. Like those are all skills that you're going to need for the rest of your life. And even as you're cultivating friendships and relationships here on campus, like learning how to listen really, really well is like a really good skill to have. Like probably one of the biggest ones I would say in cultivating a quality friendship. So definitely a big real world thing that you use beyond the program and even beyond college.
Oh, sorry. So kind of building off of what Gabri said on like the last thing about dialogue, I know that like wellness is also, such a big focus in the Paideia program. So I was just wondering how you guys have been able to use what you've learned in terms of like wellness, whether that be mental wellness, physical wellness, or emotional wellness, and how have you like applied the things that you learned into your own life, or how have you integrated it to help other people like around you, especially at such a high stress environment like Penn?
Yeah, I can take this one real quick. So over the summer, I was in the book club. I think a few of the others here were as well, but that was a book called Missing Each Other, and it was actually written by two Penn authors, which is super cool because we actually met the authors and they came in and talked to us. But that book, as with a lot of the stuff we do, is centered around the pillars. So naturally, there's a lot of wellness in that book, which was like on the theory. So like understanding what like wellness meant, and then also understanding how lots of people like needed this sort of like help with wellness and stuff like that. You're not alone. But then also some really cool exercises, which we then took into class and applied. So we were able to do these exercises in the book, like different things, like one's called push and pull, where you like work with someone else to like kind of synchronize with them. Another thing is just like taking like minutes from the day and just thinking and reflecting and taking some time for yourself. So those kind of things like we did in that book over the summer, then we took into the seminar. And then following that, like I feel like I do that like pretty regularly and quite often, just like taking those like wellness exercises and things we've talked about and applying them. Because and another big thing that I learned is that like with wellness, a lot of people like have this sort of pen face, and it is like in a sense true that like lots of people are deep down like there's things going on and they're not able to share. But I think in the seminar itself, like we get into some pretty deep discussions where I feel like I'm not alone, and I think that there's a lot of opportunities for me to see that other people also really want to take more time for wellness. So we have those discussions, and then consequently I'm a little more motivated to do it on my own as well.
Yeah, I can jump off this too. I did take a mindfulness class, like I mentioned before, because it was an SNF Paideia designated course, and I was extremely apprehensive about mindfulness as a whole as because of the class. But now I would say I have a pretty consistent meditation practice. But I think not just because of the mindfulness class, but because of the pro seminar as well. It was a time last semester for me to just kind of pause during a busy week. It was on a Wednesday at noon, so it was really that like midpoint of the week, and it allowed me to pause and reflect and just like I don't think I've ever been more present than I was last semester. And I think that this seminar and this program has a lot to do with that. I think it just allows time to just kind of stop, as Deb and the rest of the fellows have stressed, really put the emphasis on being present with people and being and forming those relationships with people has been really important this past semester. And I think the program does a great job helping you establish the tools to do that.
The other thing I would add on to this in terms of dialogue is that like the systems of course need work. Like we can cultivate these personal practices of wellness like meditation and slowing down and listening to your body and learning how to take care of yourself. But I think another thing that I want to really emphasize is that in the program, we talk about some of the systems, and like we're probably going to continue to do that as we continue through the program, that affect our wellness and how we can use our different interests to help like fixing those systems. So like we're working towards solving the thing that's causing the problem, as opposed to just putting the responsibility on us as individuals going through all these different situations. So you definitely learn a bunch of different ways to cultivate wellness practices and learn from other people and how they're doing that too. But I think ultimately, I think that at the end of the day, it's like about understanding how to use the pillars in your life, and also like seeing how dialogue is so much more present than like ever before.
Don't hesitate to reach out to us. One thing I don't think we mentioned, we're in College Hall, which is kind of fun too, a central spot to visit too. So when we're back on Monday, we'll be in College Hall. So that's all, Dr. Anderson. Do you have anything else?
No, I think I echo what you said. Maybe one just logistical note, if you're applying in the first round, those are due on January 30th. And then we'll be reviewing those applications. Typically, we'll do some interviews with as well. And then there is also the second round at the end of February. So just thinking in terms of, your timeline and your schedule, keeping those deadlines in mind.